everybody, and welcome. Welcome to the Optimus Fantasy Football Channel. It is Monday. That's right. It is Monday, the Monday before Halloween, the Monday before week 9 of the NFL season, the final day of week 8 of the NFL season. We are here, folks. Waiver wires run tomorrow night. We're in a pivotal week, Evan, in fantasy football. Week 9. We're 6 weeks away from the fantasy playoffs. This is push time. If you're in contention, you need to make sure your rosters are freaking ready because there's a lot coming. We have more bye weeks to come all the way through week 15. There's a lot going on. This was a crazy week this week, Evan. We had a lot of unexplained performances, injuries, and just all-around strangeness this past week. How are you feeling as we head towards week 9?
I'm just glad that Mageddon of week 8 is over, and now we can get back some normalcy, but I've got Saquon Barkley in a lot of places, and the Eagles are about to go on bye this coming weekend. So that's probably going to hurt a little, but I'll just do my best to get some guys to step up, which is what your bench is for.
Well, unfortunately, this isn't too brutal of a bye week, Evan. We've got the Cleveland Browns, New York Jets, Philadelphia Eagles, and Tampa Bay Buccaneers on bye. Much better than the 6 teams we had last week. A lot of high-end fantasy assets were gone last week, not so many this week. I mean, really, if we're looking at it, we've got 2 teams that we really care about, Philadelphia and Tampa Bay. Quinshon Judkins is hurt, so we don't know when we're going to see him again anyway. I know, sad face. And Harold Fannin from Cleveland, I mean, those are the ones that hurt there. But otherwise, outside of Tampa Bay and Philly, not a whole lot to worry about. But we do have waiver wire players to talk about, and we're going to go ahead and get to it, Evan. We're going to start. Oh, boy.
I have no idea how I disappeared.
I don't know. We rolled through this at the beginning of the show, and it just didn't take, I guess. So as we go from screen to screen, we'll make sure that this is working here, folks. We're going to start with QBs, Evan. This isn't really a loaded week, and QB is always the hardest position in waiver wires to fill, and you get into the season and you need to fill it because it's such a limited position. And every team has one starter, right? So you're limited to 32 guys in a 12-team league. Roughly 20 of those guys are worth rostering, but at this point in the season, we have to look at more, and we're going to start with Kirk Cousins, 22% rostered on Sleeper right now. He may be taking over the starting duties indefinitely. We don't know exactly how long Michael Penix is going to be out, but Evan, I'm going to be honest here. I have very little interest in rostering the veteran quarterback. He goes 21-31 yesterday for 171 yards, 7.12 fantasy points, does not throw a touchdown, and he couldn't get it going against a weak Miami defense. Do you have any interest, even in an emergency, of going after Kirk Cousins this week?
The closest I could think of for a Kirk Cousins would be a desperate QB2 play in a Superflex league, and that Superflex league probably would have to have 8 or 10 teams. Kirk Cousins is near the bottom of the barrel when it comes to quarterbacks that you want to be rostering. I'd consider Tyler Shough over Kirk Cousins, and I never thought I'd say that. We're going to talk about Shough in a moment, though. Kirk Cousins is in an unexciting offense that is not producing the way that it should. Even with their backups out there, it's not producing like it should. Drake London couldn't play, what's his face? Kyle Pitts. Mooney. Pitts happened to be the leading receiver by default, and he was 9 for 9 for 59 yards, and he didn't fall into the end zone. That's fine for PPR value, but, you know, it's nicer if he starts getting red zone targets, but this Falcons team was awful against this Dolphins team. I wish Keith was here right now to confirm to me that, yes, Evan, you don't know the Falcons because they fell apart, and I didn't think they could do this against the Dolphins, and yet they did. So, Kirk Cousins is not somebody anybody should be targeting. Leave him on waivers. If somebody else wants him, more than happy to let him have him.
Yeah, and I completely agree. There are better options here. Even Justin Fields, who's the next one we're going to talk about, 43% rostered on Sleeper. I prefer Fields over Kirk Cousins. He just has more of a boom upside to him. And he's been streaky this season. We've seen it. But last week, or this past Sunday, yesterday against Cincinnati, 21-32, he gets a touchdown, throws for 244 yards. He's only on the ground for 11 carries, which isn't a ton for Justin Fields. But in a pinch, in 2 QB leagues, Justin Fields is a fine roster addition who has some boom potential as we get on into the season.
Yeah, Justin Fields scared the heck out of a lot of people against the Denver Broncos and the Carolina Panthers in week 6 and 7, respectively. That was where he got less than 5 fantasy points in both games, even when he was rushing his usual amount of anywhere between 7 and 11, 12 carries, which he has to do himself because the Jets offense managed to be worse than the Bears offense in 2022. So, unfortunately, for somebody like a Justin Fields, he is not the type of quarterback who is able to rise above a really poor offensive system. Tom Brady's don't grow on trees, and Justin Fields is not the type of guy to be able to step up in a difficult situation like what the New York Jets have. I hated what Woody Johnson had to say about Justin Fields to the press. I am so glad to see that Fields bounced back and did better against quite possibly the worst defense in the league, the Cincinnati Bengals, and he did it all without Garrett Wilson. So kudos to him for making it work with Mason Taylor, their rookie tight end out of LSU. So Justin Fields absolutely should be rostered as a second quarterback in 2 quarterback leagues. If you are in a 1 quarterback league and you need somebody on a bye, Justin Fields should be your top guy. I'm not going any higher than about maybe 7% of your fab tops, but even then that's a bit of a stretch considering that you're probably going to drop Fields anyway after this week. So, and even then, I'm just realizing now that the Jets are on a week 9 bye, so he would just be a stash. Sorry about that, folks. Didn't mean to mislead for a second, but against the Cleveland Browns, that's going to be a tough matchup in week 10, but it's going to remain to be seen if Myles Garrett can even get to him because he's fast.
Yep. Well, and then if you look at week 11, 12, 13, 14, you've got New England, Baltimore, Atlanta, Miami, then Jacksonville, New Orleans, and New England to wrap up the fantasy playoffs. It's not a bad schedule. If he can get on a roll, if he can get comfortable in this offense again, like he has been a few times this season, if he can get Garrett Wilson back, I have some hope that Justin Fields could be pretty freaking good in 2 quarterback leagues for a lot of managers, and he's someone you'd want to hold through the rest of the season. Marcus Mariota is the next one up here. This is obviously a guy that you're only starting if Jaden Daniels is out, which we don't know how long this is going to linger. My guess is we've got another couple weeks of Mariota, but Mariota's just fine. If you need someone because Jaden Daniels is out, if you have other injuries and other things going on for a bye week, Marcus Mariota is a fine flyer. He's got a floor of probably like 10 to 12 points. It's good enough in Superflex.
Yeah, so Marcus Mariota is the type of backup quarterback that scares away a lot of scary Terry McLaurin shareholders, no pun intended. A lot of people I saw asking, should I start Terry McLaurin over Rashid Shaheed and so on and so forth? And I'm looking at everybody like they're nuts. Like, you don't need to bench Terry McLaurin just because Marcus Mariota is throwing him the football. He's going to be the first read from Marcus Mariota. Scary Terry absolutely is a must start. I know there are some folks that are out there who are saying he's in wide receiver 3 territory. I don't agree with this because the Chiefs defense is not that good. Their secondary doesn't suck, but this Chiefs defense is absolutely beatable. This is a Chiefs defense that blew it against the Jacksonville Jaguars with Trevor Lawrence under center. So let's not act like that the Chiefs are just going to completely crush this Washington offense. Terry McLaurin is still going to get it done. I think you can at least expect low-end wide receiver 2 at worst with Marcus Mariota throwing him the ball. But to stay on topic here, if you need a backup quarterback, I'm not going out of my way to go get Mariota. I think he will reach double-digit volume against the Chiefs, but you should absolutely be targeting Justin Fields over Mariota.
Oh, 100%. Long-term. If Fields is taken in your league and Mariota's an easy ad, though, I don't mind him. Now, the last one we're going to talk about, Tyler Shough over in New Orleans. The guy I thought should have been the starter to start the season. I know there's a lot of talk about, oh my God, he came into the league so old. He played 7 years of college football. This is Chris Winkie all over again. Well, first, Chris Winkie was 28. Just so we're clear. Shough is 26, so he's 2 years younger. And look, do I think that he's an all-world quarterback that's going to win New Orleans a Super Bowl? No, but he is definitely a better option than Rattler. You watch Shough come in, he goes 17 of 30, plays 54% of snaps, does not get a touchdown, throws an interception. But let's be honest here. If you look at him versus Rattler, they looked about the same, but Shough was coming off the bench cold. I think he's viable in 2 QB leagues. I think he's viable as a back-end QB2, especially through all these bye weeks. I don't have an issue starting him then as long as he is starting for this team. But I mean, really, his ceiling, he could accidentally be like a mid-range QB2, and that's going to be about as high as he could go.
I could see him being a mid-range QB2 against the Carolina Panthers. I could see it maybe happening against the Dolphins in Week 13. But you're not grabbing Tyler Shough hoping that he's going to save your season, because they even showed the graphic during the Saints-Buccaneers game that Shough and Rattler had about the same statistics, roughly. They were very, very comparable. And that was with Tyler Shough coming off the bench cold, like you just said. Now, coming off warm against this Rams defense, which is surprisingly good, I'm not looking for Tyler Shough to be even startable in 2-quarterback leagues. Now, in a 2-quarterback league, you're going to be rostering Tyler Shough, but if you're in a 1-quarterback league, he should be near the bottom of the barrel when it comes to rostering any quarterback whatsoever. Even if you have somebody on a bye week, you've probably got at least 5 better options on your waiver wire than Tyler Shough. So, no, I'm not chasing after him in 1 QB leagues. This Saints offense is going to struggle. It's not certainly going to be the worst in the league, but I don't think anybody here on this Saints team is the future for this organization. Granted, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know how long everybody's going to last, but Shough being an older quarterback, I don't know why he was even a second-round pick. Like, he did not look that good out there as a second-rounder. He looked like a fifth-rounder out there.
I don't know, man. He was my favorite quarterback at the Senior Bowl. He looked better than Riley Leonard. He looked better than Jalen Milroe. He was just talented. But again, he's an older breed, but he played a more NFL style offense most of his college career, which is the one thing that gives me hope that he can at least be serviceable. But I will say, if you're looking at any of these quarterbacks in a 1-quarterback league, you made some really poor life decisions in your draft and in these waiver wires, and you need to seek help. This is all for 2-quarterback here when we're talking about most of these quarterbacks, guys. We're going to move on, Evan, to the running backs that we like here in Week 9. We're going to start with the hottest waiver wire ad, with Cam Scatabo going down. That dislocation, it looks like he is probably done for the season. Tyrone Tracy crawls back into relevance with the New York Giants. He hasn't seen a ton of volume this season, Evan. Missed 2 games in the middle here. He missed Week 4 and missed Week 5 against the Chargers and against the Saints. He's seeing between 5 and 10 carries a game with Scatabo, but then he goes 10 for 39 once Scatabo goes down, gets 63% of snaps. He has between 7 and 10 fantasy points the last 2 weeks. Given what this offense is, you've got Jackson Dart, the rookie at quarterback. You've got a suspect offensive line. Your main receiver is going to be Wan'Dale Robinson with a little bit of Darius Slayton mixed in. Malik Neighbors is out. You've got Theo Johnson, Daniel Bellinger. You don't have a lot else. Devin Singletary is the other running back in this backfield that's going to be viable for any sort of NFL playing time. Tyrone Tracy, though, like we saw him play really well last year. His rookie season, he was a late round pick. Nobody expected a ton of him. He was RB 26 on the season, and he didn't see much volume in the first 4 weeks. His max was 5 carries last season through the first 4 weeks. This is a guy that I trust. This is an offense that's going to need to lean on the run game. He's a second-year running back. He knows his way around the league. They were already leaning on Scatabo, so I don't know why they wouldn't lean on Tyrone Tracy. For me, he has to be the top running back on waivers this week.
Yeah, he's an absolute must-add. He's probably going to be the top waiver wire ad as far as running backs go for this week. But you were saying that you definitely trust this guy, and he played well last year, but did he, though? I mean, you take a look at last year's numbers. He did fine against a bad Steelers run defense, a bad Carolina Panthers defense. We're talking about last year, though. Just like what Lou is saying here, Tyrone Tracy is one of the running backs in the NFL, that's for sure. I'm with Lou on this one. He's nothing special, in my opinion. He has his good games against really bad defenses, but then he stinks up the joint and goes for less than 3 yards per carry against the Saints in Week 14 of last year. And let's get with the times here. This year, when he's given 10 carries, he only got 24 yards against the Washington Commanders' run defense. And then you give him another 10 carries against the Eagles, 3.9 yards per carry. And then he caught 2 of 3 for 14 yards. I am not excited about Tyrone Tracy. I mean, you're gonna have to add him to your bench if you need a running back, but starting him is gonna be a long shot unless you absolutely have nobody else to start. Because, I mean, I don't want to say Tyrone Tracy sucks, but he's not exactly this amazing running back that a lot of people are hyping him up to be. They drafted Cam Scatabo for a very good reason, because Tracy ain't good enough.
Sure.
Now, Devin Singletary is not going to be taking away like prominent touches from Tyrone Tracy, but you guys have to temper your expectations for Tracy and don't expect him to save your league. Tracy is a guy that you're going to have to empty the rest of your fab if you really want to get him.
Oh, for sure. And look, my expectations are capped. He's a back-end RB2 at his ceiling. However, what I do like about this is that the volume's going to be there. And if you look at last season, sure, he wasn't super efficient. There were a few weeks when he was super efficient. They were pretty spread out. He didn't really bunch them together except for that 4-week span between week 8 and week 12. But Pittsburgh, Washington, Carolina, Tampa Bay defenses you knew you could run against last year.
And
but here's the thing that he does. He scores touchdowns. The volume's inefficient, but he was scoring touchdowns last season. And if he can do that again and he can fall in the end zone this year, he's worth it.
Sure. I mean, who else are they going to give the ball to fall in the end zone, though?
Exactly. Unless it's Jackson Dart, it's going to be Dart and it's going to be Tracy. And I like this point from Lou here. For a running back you can get for free off the waiver wire in week 9, it's fine. Right? Bottom of the barrel right now. I mean, our options are pretty starved here. Dylan Sampson's the next one we're actually going to talk about. Talking about starved. With Quinshawn Judkins going down, yes, they're on bye this week. We're not going to see Dylan Sampson. This would be a stash ad. But if Quinshawn Judkins misses time, they've got the Jets, the Ravens, Las Vegas, San Francisco, Tennessee, and Chicago. That's through week 15. Those are great running back matchups, Evan.
But in the Browns' case, are they, though?
Not the Browns matchup.
No. So listen, Dylan Sampson, Jerome Ford, Raheem Sanders, I want nothing to do with any of these guys that the Browns have. Quinshawn Judkins is miles better than anybody else in that running back depth. Dylan Sampson may have been a third-round draft pick, but he is noticeably worse than Quinshawn Judkins. We weren't even sure if Judkins was going to be able to play this season with the legal hot water he got himself into. The Browns had to delay signing his second-round tender to get him on the roster. And now that Quinshawn Judkins, he got hurt. He's day-to-day right now. He's not out considerably for, it's an AC joint sprain right now. It's day-to-day. As Lou was just saying, it takes roughly an average of 10.3 days to heal for what it's worth. Spoiler alert, Lou may be just working on this, wink. This is nothing that I'm excited about from this point forward. Dylan Sampson, I don't want to spend any fab on if I can help it. If I just need to round out my team with just one more running back, see if you could get Sampson for free. I'm not spending any fab on this guy.
Yeah, I'm not saying go spend fab on. I mean, maybe $1 or $2 if you absolutely have to, if you're in a pinch. What I like, though, and I think we could see, we saw him get 6 targets last week. And that was with Judkins in for half of the game.
Yippee, 29 yards that didn't go anywhere. Woo!
Yeah, but you know what? That's 7 points in a flex position where you might be struggling to find a guy that has a ceiling of 2 to 3 points. That's how ugly it's gotten. And if you're in a deeper league, I don't mind adding Sampson as long as your expectations are capped. And I'm going to say that for a lot of these guys. But where you shouldn't cap your expectations is with our tools, Evan. Lou is building some of the best projections in the industry right now. These things are insane and they account for everything. And I want you to know, folks, he called Tyler Johnson getting an uptick in volume yesterday for the Jets. His system called it. It's a beautiful thing. We're going to be talking a ton more about this, and we're hopefully going to have all of that live with our tools this week, including a new waiver wire tool that is almost to the finish line and a lineup optimizer here coming up for the weekend to help you get ready for the fantasy playoffs. So head on over to tools.optimusfantasy.com. Get 25% off your first 4 months with the promo code OptimusFall. It'll help you avoid having to do things like rostering Isaiah Davis of the New York Jets, who is our next topic or next player here on the Waiver Wire show. 33% rostered in Sleeper. I know people are like, oh my God, look, Isaiah Davis, he's going to be a 50-50 back with Breece Hall. Let's just put that to bed right now. Weird
people
matchup.
Were saying the same thing about Braylon Allen, and unfortunately he got hurt, and it wasn't going to happen anyway.
No, it was never going to happen, and it's not going to happen with Isaiah Davis. He got 7 carries, 65 yards. He had the one long run. Congratulations, that was awesome. 5 catches for 44 yards. He's been seeing volume all season. It's just the most he's happened to do with it this year against a really, really bad Bengals defense. everything with a grain of salt here. I have zero interest in Isaiah Davis. This was a flash in the pan. Unless you have Breece Hall and you want to handcuff him, there's no reason to roster Isaiah Davis.
Isaiah Davis is seeing enough snaps where you could make a case to handcuff Breece Hall if you have him on your redraft team with shallow benches, which is usually enough to see some standalone value, like if you don't want to take a 0 and you have to get 5 or 6 fantasy points in PPR leagues because he is catching some passes. Even if they're not getting too far, they're still a heck of a lot better than what Dylan Sampson is doing with them. So somebody like an Isaiah Davis, you could absolutely make a case. I have a little bit of interest in him, but I'm not going out of my way to spend big bucks on him. I think a lot of folks are buying into the Breece Hall trade rumors, despite the fact that no teams have been confirmed to show any like genuine interest in Breece Hall that he could potentially be sent to. So, and Isaiah Davis is being stashed for that reason because people are thinking, oh, he's going to become the new lead back. I better go get him. Hold your horses, folks. This is not confirmed. You don't stash people just based on pure guesswork. So, well, which is ironic considering that projections are kind of guesswork in a way, but they're educated guesswork. They're based off of volume and how the team likes to use them and so on and so forth. We have our own projections, which has our own secret sauce. Wink. So Isaiah Davis is going to a week 9 bye. This is a bye-week stash that you don't really need to go out of your way to do in shallow leagues. Like, he's probably somebody you could get for free in shallow leagues, but don't count on him to get 18.9 PPR points again anytime soon, unless something happens to Breece.
Yeah, no, 100%. Again, this is a handcuff stash ad if you're going after Isaiah Davis. I'm going to say the same thing for Samaje Perine. It was cool to see him get some work. I love it. 9 carries for 94 yards, has a couple of long carries, has 1 catch for 6. But let's be honest, folks, he hasn't gone over 31 yards this season other than this one game. You love to see Samaje Perine get some work, but there's absolutely no way that unless you're in a super deep league, you're not rostering Samaje Perine. There's no way.
Yeah, no, Samaje Perine is not seeing enough volume that you can make a case to stash him in shallow leagues, but if you are in a deeper league, actually, you could make a minor case to stash a Samaje Perine, because if you take a look at the numbers that Chase Brown got, he's basically splitting the backfield with Samaje Perine. He is not getting bell cow volume anymore. He saw 54% of the snaps against the Jets, which was an easy enough defense to beat up on. He took 12 carries for 73, and he fell in the end zone. Caught 3 of 3 passes, which also fell in the end zone. So it's 12 easy points that you got out of Chase Brown just by falling in the end zone. Take those away, and that's roughly 13.5 fantasy points, if I did my math in my head correctly. That is still RB2 volume. So somebody like a Chase Brown is not going to be losing his job to Samaje Perine, but you could, like Isaiah Davis, you could make a minor case to stash him if you are desperate at running back, but do not count on him to be producing like he did against the Jets, especially, I mean, well, then again, knowing my Bears defense next week, they're probably going to end up giving up some red zone 5-yard touchdown pass to Samaje Perine just because the Bears defense likes giving up volume to no-namers like a Perine. So even then, that's not enough to make me change my mind on him. If you're desperate at running back, try not to pay anything for Perine, but don't roster him expecting him to be startable. He's got some standalone value, but it's really desperate flex value.
Oh yeah, at the most. I'm not interested in rostering him again. If I've got Chase Brown, I feel like I need a handcuff, maybe, but I don't handcuff. It's a waste of a roster spot in my opinion.
Absolutely.
We're gonna move on to another guy. He's trending up, but he's probably more of a handcuff as well. Emanuel Wilson in Green Bay. Let's be real. He's behind Josh Jacobs. That's not going to change. 11 carries for 61 yards last night. Got some people talking. He's had other instances of that this season. He had a 6 carry for 17-yard experience, and we had 8 for 44, and then 3 catches for 37 in week 4 against Dallas. The only way that Emanuel Wilson is worth a flex is against weaker defenses. That's what we saw against Pittsburgh this week. They've got Carolina, Philly, New York, Minnesota, Detroit, Chicago, and then Denver up to the fantasy playoffs. I have no real interest in Emanuel Wilson again, unless you're handcuffing him to Josh Jacobs.
It's a bit tricky with the Packers because they like to mix up a lot of things that don't make a lot of sense for fantasy football purposes, but make a lot of sense for real life football purposes. So to get Emanuel Wilson 42% of the snaps against the Steelers, where he took 11 carries for 61 yards, that was just pure game script. So like what you're saying, against weaker defenses like the Bengals, like the Cardinals, he's going to be seeing sloppy seconds to Josh Jacobs. So I don't want the numbers to be fooling anybody here because, Jacobs just didn't have to get out there as much and risk getting hurt as much because he's just beating up on these terrible run defense that the Bengals, Cardinals, and the Steelers have. So you don't need to give somebody like a Josh Jacobs more than about 13 carries because he's going to fall in the end zone with at least one of them. And Emanuel Wilson is at least a better kind of a better pass catcher out of the backfield than Josh Jacobs. Yeah. They're about comparable. But Emanuel Wilson is going to be near the bottom of the list here compared to the other running backs we've talked about so far. I don't really see a need to roster him in shallow leagues. I'd pass on him if I were you guys.
Yeah, I would too. If you need an emergency flex against Carolina this week, probably not a horrible matchup. Could have a similar situation as this week, but otherwise, no, I'm staying away from Emanuel Wilson. Tyler Allgeier is the last one we're going to talk about here. A lot of excitement for him heading into this week. This matchup against Miami screamed, gonna run all over you. And of course, they go in and they lose to Miami. Bijan Robinson has 25 yards rushing. Tyler Allgeier, 4 carries for 4 yards. He does get a touchdown, which salvages his day. Are you still feeling like this is probably the RB2 that you want to roster right now that's available? Or are we starting to shy away from Allgeier a little bit here?
Tyler Allgeier is doing exactly what I expect out of him. There are games where he'll only get 9% of the snaps like he did against the Panthers in week 3, and then there's this game where he saw 40% of the snaps against the Dolphins where Bijan Robinson was being bottled up. Gosh, I never thought I'd say Bijan's getting bottled up to the Dolphins run defense. Right? Doesn't that sound weird to say, Nate?
It doesn't sound right. It doesn't sound right at all.
Man, I wish Keith was here to confirm this because he would know all about why the Falcons were just a weird team, why I can't stop
he would.
Yeah, why I can't stop calling the Atlanta Falcons the Atlanta Falcons, because that's just what they're good at. Anyway, Tyler Allgeier is a guy that's going to end up on our list pretty much all year long because he's still only 47% rostered in sleeper redraft leagues because there's still plenty of people who know ball in sleeper who are not going to go out of their way to go get a Tyler Allgeier because of his upside being capped, being that he's taking sloppy seconds behind Bijan Robinson. So 4 carries for 4 yards. Yuck. He fell in the end zone with one of them. Oh, whoop-de-doo. Caught 2 passes for 10 yards. That's good enough for 9.4 PPR points, which is low-end flex volume that, it sounds like BS, but when you fall in the end zone, you look good, right? So,
yep.
Tyler Allgeier is somebody that if you need a running back, I'd still rather have him over Samaje Perine, over Isaiah Davis, even over Dylan Sampson, quite frankly. Tyler Allgeier, I think, would be at the top of my list. It doesn't sound good to say because game script dictates heavily on how the Falcons like using him. But yeah, sure. Tyler Allgeier, you can spend a minimal amount of fab and get him on your roster because he should be easy enough to get.
Well, and he's not Tyrone Tracy is still my number one. Because he's going to be seeing, he's going to be seeing RB1 volume, and that's the only reason. I do think that Allgeier is a more talented back, but he's in an offense with Bijan Robinson. His upside is completely capped without a Robinson injury. So,
and I want to be clear: do not avoid Tyrone Tracy. He should be on top, but temper your expectations because Tyrone Tracy ain't as good as Cam Skattebo, which I never thought I'd say about a rookie, but Skattebo clearly looks better than Tyrone Tracy.
Oh, Skattebo's the way, the truth, and the light, my friend. I watched him in Mobile and was like, this is my dude. Before we get on to the next segment and talk about wide receivers, Evan, I want to get to this question here from Modify Season on Twitch. Would you trade Jameson Williams for Sanders, a 2026 third in Dynasty? Has a really good wide receiver room at the moment. Jameson just sits on his bench. Other bench receivers are Jaden Higgins, Troy Franklin, Rashid Shaheed. How do you feel about this?
So I have to ask for clarification. Which Sanders are we talking about here? Are we talking Shadur? Are we talking Miles? Are we talking Shiloh?
That's a good question. Let's get some clarification on that. If we can modify season, it would be nice to have that. Until we quarterback.
Shadur.
So he's talking Shadur.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Okay. So here's my thing with Shadur. I don't think he starts a snap in the NFL, at least not in Cleveland. I wouldn't move for him. I was watching people take him in some of those fast draft Origins rookie drafts this offseason, and I couldn't figure out what the hell they were doing. Like, we've only got 6 rounds to pick some of these players. You want guys who are going to start. guys who have a path to start, he's still the third string quarterback. They brought in Bailey Zappi to be ahead of him. I would not move off of Jameson Williams. There's no way.
No, I would not move off of Jameson Williams just for that. You can do better than that, modify season. Jameson Williams, yeah, another boom-bust wide receiver who's not exactly living up to his second round. Wait, wasn't he a first-round draft pick, if I'm not mistaken?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, so, yeah, I get it. I'm not happy with JMO either. I made the mistake of trading him away for Nick Chubb 2 years ago when I was in Win Now, and boy, did that age poorly. Shadur Sanders is not a must trade. He's got a back injury. He's inactive. Kevin Stefanski has no plans to start him at any point soon, even when he does get healthy. The Browns spent a third-round draft pick on Dylan Gabriel. That he's going to be the long-term starter until they decide he's not. So, no, sir. I would be looking for better offers than that.
Yeah, you can do better than that, for sure. All right, Evan, let's move on to the wide receivers, somewhere we definitely need to do better this week, but good luck with that. This list is kind of ugly. And we're going to start with the first one here, Xavier Hutchinson of the Houston Texans. Right now, he is 8% rostered on Sleeper. Middling volume. He's had a couple of games, 2 games to be exact, of 15-plus fantasy points. Both of those have included a touchdown. However, this past week, with Nico Collins out, we saw an uptick against San Francisco in a surprise win. 71% snap share, which isn't highly unusual for him, but 6 targets, season high, 5 catches, gets a touchdown, 69 yards. Nice. Xavier Hutchinson, as long as Nico Collins is out, he's the wide receiver I think takes over the wide receiver 1 volume, if there's such a thing as that happening in this offense. We've already seen Hutchinson get volume. I know we love Jalen Noel. I know we love Jaden Higgins. Maybe Jaden Higgins challenges it, but Xavier Hutchinson is a guy to go after in this offense right now.
So, yeah, Jalen Noel is clearly playing behind Higgins and Hutchinson right now. The Texans clearly like Hutchinson. According to head coach DeMeco Ryans, head coach of the Texans, he said on Monday about Nico Collins, we'll see how he progresses this week. He's doing really well and is trending toward a week 9 return. So, this is really good news for those of you who are holding Nico Collins on your teams. Nico Collins is looking to come back against the Denver Broncos this coming weekend. I am not looking to spend a ton of fab on any of the pieces available on the waiver wire from the Houston Texans wide receiver room. Xavier Hutchinson is a guy that I don't want to spend more than maybe about $5 fab at this point, because Hutchinson's volume will take a hit when Nico comes back. The Denver Broncos are without Patrick Surtain, which I'm sure doesn't make you happy, Nate, but even then, this Broncos defense is still pretty good at defending the pass, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm. Well, we've got Riley Moss and PJ Locke. We've got a couple of really good safeties. Nick Benito, Cooper, they get at the quarterback. So, yeah, this is going to be a tough one for Houston. I like Xavier Hutchinson. The schedule moving forward, if Nico misses more time, Denver, Jacksonville, Tennessee, Buffalo, Indy, Kansas City, Arizona, Vegas, then the Chargers in the fantasy championship week. Not exactly a great schedule. So if Nico Collins does come back and he's healthy, Xavier Hutchinson becomes a non-factor. He would have to score a touchdown to be relevant. Of course, he had the 2 against Baltimore, but one of the weakest secondaries in the league.
So in conclusion, folks, don't go spending a lot of fab dollars on Hutchinson. Just spend a little bit, keep him on your bench, see if he ends up as a wide receiver 2 behind Nico Collins, because Christian Kirk is not coming back anytime soon, I don't think.
No, he's done. I think he's done for the year. But
hamstrings like to linger, and Kirk is not exactly going to be back soon from this hamstring injury.
Yeah, no, I don't know. My gut tells me we don't see Kirk again the rest of the season. Now, because of that, we're going to bring on another wide receiver from the Texans, Jaden Higgins. I really liked him coming out of school, out of Iowa State, teammate of Jalen Noel. He saw 8 targets last week. It's by far the most he's seen. His previous high this season was 4. But here's what's impressive. His catch rate, 13-21. And we've seen CJ Stroud struggle with accuracy this season because their teams are getting pressure on him. I like Jaden Higgins. I think that even with Nico Collins coming back, he's a guy who could kind of emerge as a serious wide receiver 2 in this offense, especially if Christian Kirk misses more time. How do you feel about this? Because he's someone where if I've got a deeper league or I have a bench spot because I have a bunch of guys on IR, I would stash Jaden Higgins for the next couple of weeks to see what happens.
Yeah, if you have room for a wide receiver bench stash, Jaden Higgins is my favorite to go after. I like him better than Hutchinson, actually. I mean, I know that Hutchinson has the veteran presence over rookies Higgins and Noel, but Jaden Higgins is a guy that the Texans are really, really trying to get the ball in his hands. And I think that's also why they're not going to rush back Christian Kirk from this hamstring injury, because they like Jaden Higgins. They just needed somebody, a veteran presence, to be in front of Higgins so that he can develop and get acquainted with this NFL system. And on top of that, I think Higgins is worth the bench stash to see if he puts up wide receiver 2 volume toward the end of the season, which is looking like it could be really good for the fantasy playoffs. Week 14 against a beatable Chiefs secondary, and then he's got the Arizona Cardinals, who suck at defending the pass, and then the Raiders secondary in week 16 that also sucks at defending the pass. 17 against the Chargers will be a little tougher, but I think Higgins will have has the potential for some really good games toward the end of the season. Do you need to spend a lot of fab on Higgins? No, I wouldn't say you need to. I would say you could go no higher than about $4 or $5 fab dollars, but if you want a decent stash and you have the room to do so, why not?
Yeah, you might as well. He's absolutely worth it. I want to move on now. We're going to move on to a couple of Tennessee Titans. This one, I'm glad he's on this list. I really like saying his name. Chimere Dike over in Tennessee, one of a pair of rookie wide receivers we're going to talk about here on this team. But Dike, over the last 4 weeks, 5 targets, 3 targets, 4 targets, 8 targets. This past week against Indianapolis, 89% snap share, 8 targets, 7 catches for 93 yards. He does have a touchdown that he picked up last week. I think he's the wide receiver in this offense you want to target. I know we're going to talk about Elic Eomanor here in a second, but Dike has really emerged as a guy who is a reliable target. They're using him with some junk run plays, some trick run plays, some jet sweeps. I like him all around overall. There's not a lot to be excited about in Tennessee, but Dike is worth a stash, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Especially if you are in a league that counts return points, you should already have Chimere Dike on your roster at this point. We talked a bit about him last week, too. So Chimere Dike got a huge increase in snap percentage just because Calvin Ridley also was unable to play, and he's performing better with the catches that he's getting compared to an Elic Eomanor. So they can't seem to rely on Chigo Okonkwo to do enough with this offense. Cam Ward has to throw the ball to somebody who can actually do something with the football, and that somebody is DK. So Chimere Dike, I wouldn't say you need to empty the bank for him because it's the Titans offense and it sucks. Right. And Calvin Ridley is not out for the season as well, which will put a hit on DK's volume if Ridley comes back. So Calvin Ridley also has a hamstring injury. They can't rush him back. But they have a week 10 bye week, which is convenient for Calvin Ridley. There is a potential he could be back week 11 against the Houston Texans. I mean, I could be wrong about that because these things do linger, but he is officially not out for the season, so therefore I'm not ready to be emptying the bank for a Chimere Dike. But if you need a good wide receiver play for some short-term value that you could sell high on, I'd go after him. I'd spend at least probably 10, 11, 12 fab dollars on him at this point and see if you could sell him.
Yep, which is crazy because Eomanor, we're going to pivot to now, is seeing more volume. He's had snap shares 70% or higher the entire season. The last 3 weeks, 93, 96, and 94% snap share. He had 8 targets last week, 4 catches for 52 yards. DK is just doing more with what he has. And I think that's all it comes down to. Exactly. If you're going to get, I wouldn't mind rostering Eomanor if DK and some of these other guys are gone, but he's kind of sliding down to my last resort on this week 9 waiver wire. I'd prefer to stay away from him. Now the last one here, Troy Franklin, we've talked about him, Denver Broncos, a couple times this season, but it's been so up and down with him. However, that seems to be changing. In the last 5 games, Evan, he has 3 games of 8+ targets, 8 targets week 4 against Cincinnati, and then week 7, 10 against the Giants. Yesterday, he has 8 targets against the Cowboys, 3 touchdowns in the last 2 weeks. He's clearly the wide receiver 2 in this offense. We know it's Courtland Sutton as the wide receiver 1, but Franklin is gaining favor, and he's seeing enough volume for me where I think he needs to be rostered in your league, and he's someone that you can roll out as a flex every week.
He is seeing enough floor to justify flex volume, because even if he doesn't fall in the end zone and even if he doesn't exceed 55 receiving yards, he is at least getting enough volume that Bo Nix wants to have with him in this messy offense that justifies a roster spot. I've liked Troy Franklin a lot since his week 2 breakout against the Colts, because that Colts defense is really good too. Like, they have a pretty good secondary. Troy Franklin is somebody that I wouldn't say you need to empty the bank for either, but if you have to prioritize a wide receiver, I would say he's my top guy over Chimere DK. Like, Troy Franklin is the move. I recommended him this past Friday against the Cowboys with Keith when I was on the Friday Vibe show, and if you guys started him with 6 for 8 catches for 89 yards and 2 touchdowns, you cashed in, and congratulations. So against a tougher Houston Texans defense is going to be tougher for this Denver Broncos offense, but I'd say you could make a case to spend up for Troy Franklin, wouldn't you say?
Oh, 100%. He's a bona fide wide receiver too now. In an offense that I don't want to go crazy because we know that this Dallas defense is bad, but they made them look really bad. Like really bad. So I think there's something to this offense. I think they're starting to click. Apparently Bo Nix is just like Joe Burrow. He starts out slow, and that's the way it is. So I can get used to that as long as they keep winning. Now that they're 6-2, makes my heart happy, and I'm not going to be sad. So go get Troy Franklin. Gotta love it. Now we're going to move on to the tight end position, Evan. I love tight ends. I don't know why. It's just my favorite position to grade. Has been since I got into this industry. And one of my favorite tight ends in general since I got into this industry has been Cade Otton over the last 2 seasons. He's the first one up on our waiver wire tight ends today. Right now, he is rostered in 59% of sleeper leagues. He's right around 40% in ESPN. But here's the thing about him, Evan. With all of the injuries in Tampa Bay right now to their receiving core, we're watching Baker Mayfield start to funnel volume to Cade Otton. I knew it was going to happen. It happened last season. It's not a surprise. Now, these injuries aren't going to have to persist for Cade Otton to continue seeing volume. That's the beautiful thing about this. He has cemented himself in this Tampa Bay offense the last 3 weeks. 6 targets, 9 targets, and 5 targets. He's tight end 25, but over the last 4 weeks, he's like tight end 8. And this is just who Cade Otton is. He did the same thing last season. He came on late. He's going to be a valuable asset. Whether you're streaming tight ends, you've got a tight end on bye week this week, you're dealing with injuries, maybe you're worried that George Kittle isn't going to come back to full form this season. I really like Cade Otton a lot this week and rest of season.
I like Cade Otton a lot too with this depleted Tampa Bay wide receivers, and I mean, they don't have any other pass-catching tight ends that could take any volume away from Otton either. Otton is seeing almost 100% of the snaps in every single game this season. He actually saw 100% in week 6 against the 49ers, and that was when he caught 5 of 6 for 51. So I know that Cade Otton has not seen the end zone, and we've been glazing this guy, as the kids like to say, for weeks, hoping that he'd fall into the end zone, hoping that he can keep up the double-digit fantasy production. But we have to remember that tight ends are notoriously difficult to get any respectable fantasy volume from. So when you can go get a guy like a Cade Otton, who's currently 59% rostered in sleeper leagues, you absolutely should go get him if he's not already rostered. You can make a case to roster him as your second tight end as well, and he's got enough volume to justify low-end flex value, even if he doesn't take advantage of, like, the Saints, for example, in Week 8. Now, he's another guy on a Week 9 bye. You're not going to be able to start him this week, but he's at least a good stash. You can make a case to pay up a bit for him. I'd say no more than about $7 fab.
Yeah, 7 to 10 I'd be okay with. He's a guy you can start rest of season. Like, let's say you got bit by Mark Andrews. Cade Otton, I'd rather start Cade Otton every week than Mark Andrews. He's seeing volume where Andrews isn't. And yeah. Now, I might not start this guy over Mark Andrews, but I might also start him over Mark Andrews. I don't know. Jonnu Smith, the Tennessee Titans. He's been up and down. He's streaky, and that's what Arthur Smith does to this position. It's what he's done to Jonnu Smith in the past. That's why we were so excited. Remember when he left Tennessee? Like, greener pastures, some Jonnu Smith time, and it just didn't work out. Unfortunately, but here and there he's valuable. And I think that if you're going to stash a tight end for a playoff run, if you need some depth, the matchups coming up, Indianapolis, the Chargers, Cincinnati, Chicago, Buffalo, Baltimore, Miami. These are some good matchups for Pittsburgh. This is a good Pittsburgh team, even though we didn't necessarily think it was going to be. I like Jonnu Smith rest of season as an emergency flex play, and if it turns into more, then so be it, and if not, you can drop him.
Yeah, Jonnu Smith is probably near the bottom of my desired tight ends, and even then I might be fibbing a little bit here, just because when it comes to tight end production, I have Jonnu Smith like second to last. Like, I have him above Isaiah Likely and Hunter Long because those are two guys you're never going to start, but I also have him below Theo Johnson. And the reason I say that is because Jonnu Smith might have a bit of a safe floor, but he's also sharing a lot of production with their fake wide receivers, Pat Freiermuth and Darnell Washington. I feel like what happened like against the last couple of weeks, especially against the Bengals, like Arthur Smith decided to go, all right, your wide receivers now, go get it. So now it's a messy tight end room that I don't really want to have to touch unless I absolutely have to. You could probably get Jonnu Smith for like $2 or $3 fab dollars if you're desperate, if he's like the only tight end left. But with the floor that he's got, there's other tight ends I'd rather start.
Now, what about Evan Ingram?
Evan Ingram is a guy I would happily start over Jonnu Smith. Happily start him over Jonnu Smith. I don't like the way Sean Payton is using Evan Ingram. I know he's 31. He's got 8 seasons under his belt. He's in his 9th season. It's really difficult to have a long, talented career as a tight end in the NFL, but he has shown that he can get anywhere between 6 and 8 targets in certain weeks. I mean, he only saw 4 against Dallas, but that's because they were up big and they didn't have to throw as much. The wide receivers were clicking, right?
Yeah, so there was no reason to throw to him.
Yeah, so they didn't have to throw as much. He's not seeing the snaps that he probably deserves, where like guys like Adam Troutman are splitting with him, but Troutman is not a guy that you go target, and they don't really have anybody else to play tight end. I mean, they got Nate Adkins, whoever the heck that is. So, yeah, you can make a case to go get Evan Ingram. I have him as my he didn't quite make my waiver wire rankings this week, but Ingram is somebody who should already be rostered as your second tight end.
Yep. Well, he probably didn't make your waiver wire rankings because he's 50+% rostered, but just barely over. He's available in about 50% of leagues across most platforms. He would be my priority at tight end to add this week. Like we said, he only had the 4 targets against Dallas, but he caught all 4 of them for 36 yards. Then he had 8, 6, 6, and 7 targets week 4 on. That's after he missed week 3 against the Chargers with an injury. He's someone who becomes important in this offense. Denver 6-2. They lead the division right now. No matter what Kansas City does tonight, it doesn't matter. Denver leads this division at the end of this week. Ooh, that feels good to say. I'll take it. All right. We're 8 weeks into the season. The Denver Broncos lead the AFC West. That's awesome. So this is a team that they're going to need to utilize Ingram more. This offense is going to have to get more serious. They're going to have to get more efficient. And part of that is using Evan Ingram. He's one of your best weapons. So I think that this is a really good stash. And if nothing comes of it, you drop him and you move on. Right? Like, no harm, no foul. Yep.
You don't have to pay big for Ingram.
No, you don't. Speaking of no harm, no foul, we're going to move on to kickers and then some players we think you should stay the hell away from this week. Evan, we're going to roll through these kickers pretty quick here. We've got Jake Bates. He's 53% rostered on Sleeper. He's the Lions kicker. The Lions get in the end zone a lot. They're coming off a bye. They're up against Minnesota. We saw Carson Wentz just went on IR. We don't know who's going to be playing quarterback. A lot of reports were that J.J. McCarthy would be ready, but it could be Max Brosmer. So we don't know. I think Jake Bates is a guy that's going to get a lot of kicks in this Minnesota game. So I really like him this week. Tyler Loop, same deal, New Orleans. They're inefficient, and you're rolling out a rookie quarterback who has very limited snaps under his belt. You're going to get into a lot of stalled drives, which is going to give Loop a lot of opportunities to kick here. Josh Carty, fine if you need a kicker. He's got a low rostership. He hasn't been phenomenal this season, but the Rams, he made all 5 extra points last week. He's been hit or miss with the field goals. He's missed some chip shottish ones that kind of make you a little bit upset if you got him rostered, but again, with kickers, beggars can't be choosers. Daniel Carlson of the Las Vegas Raiders. He's just accurate, and he's a guy you should already have rostered in your league, which is crazy that he's so lowly rostered. Probably partially a product of this offense, just not scoring a whole ton. But in a bye week, not a bad guy to grab in a pinch. Then Riley Patterson of the Miami Dolphins. Evan, this is a matchup one for me. Riley Patterson's been pretty decent. He's only missed one kick since he took over for Jason Sanders in Miami. But with the matchup this week, look, Miami's not going to score a ton of points. This whole thing against Atlanta was a complete and total fluke. But Miami's up against Baltimore. They give up the third most points to kickers. It just doesn't seem like a bad ad to me if you're streaming kickers right now.
Wouldn't that be insane if the Ravens-Dolphins game ends up being a field goal competition? I could absolutely see that happening.
Yeah. Yeah. And Tyler makes a good point. He misses extra points. Yeah.
Yes, he does.
Which he's a kicker who's available. This is the hard thing in fantasy and kicker leagues. People like to stash kickers, which is ridiculous. And they get real excited about it. And you get into these situations if you stream kickers where you get kind of screwed some weeks on the wire. But, it is what it is. We work around it. And we start guys we don't necessarily want to.
So Before we get to the guys that we don't want to pick up, I do have a couple of spoilers for the waiver wire article that we just posted on OptimusFantasy.com earlier today to check that out. I listed a couple of tight ends that we didn't get to tonight, one of them being Colston Loveland. 25% rostered on Sleeper. The Bears just came off a devastating loss to the Ravens. Cole Kmet is still out. They are facing the Bengals, who are the worst at defending tight ends this year. They're giving up an average of 21.2 fantasy points per game to the tight end position in half PPR leagues. So, being that he's starting to see slowly more volume in this Ben Johnson offense. I mean, Ben Johnson spent the 10th overall pick on this guy. They've been wanting to get him involved in this offense more and more. So if you are looking for a tight end too with upside this coming weekend, I would go after Colston Loveland if there's no other better tight ends on the waiver wire. And if you are the utmost desperate, Jatavian Sanders. Don't throw up in your mouth, though. Hear me out. The Packers are third at most fantasy points given up to tight ends this season. They've given up an average of 16.3 per game in half PPR leagues. Whether it's Bryce Young or Andy Dalton throwing the football, Sanders has at least a safe floor of 3 targets, which he got against the tough Bills defense. So don't let that scare you away. You could probably get him for free. Treat him as a low-end, desperate tight end 2 play that could pan out if he manages to fall in the end zone.
Yeah, and just for everybody who's curious about that article here, Lou may or may not have teased a potential league-winning running back in that article. How do we know? Because he's already done it before. So make sure you check that out, OptimusFantasy.com. We've also got Carly Manger's Unpacked article. She runs back all of the stats of Week 8 you want to care about, including Evan. You kind of called the whole Justin Fields thing.
Didn't I?
You told us in vibes. You told us in vibes. And she gave you props for that in the article. So go check that out, guys, over on OptimusFantasy.com. And before we get you all out of here, we're going to roll through some players we think you should stay the heck away from. These are our Week 9 avoid 'em players. We'll be through here very quickly. Tyler Huntley of the Baltimore Ravens. Nice handcuff to Lamar Jackson. There's no fantasy viability here at all. Once Lamar Jackson is back, he goes to dust.
Lamar Jackson practiced in full today.
Yeah. Lamar Jackson will be back this week. Tank Bigsby, Philadelphia Eagles, goes off for 100 yards on Sunday. Don't expect that to happen again. Don't expect him to get anywhere near that volume again. That was junk time behind Saquon, folks. Cool. If you accidentally rostered him or you've got him in best ball, it paid off for you. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain right now.
Saquon Barkley's groin injury is not believed to be serious, and he's going to have the Week 9 bye to heal up. You do not need to go get Tank Bigsby. Barkley is going to be expected to play in Week 10 against the Packers.
Yep. Devin Singletary, same division, New York Giants. We already talked about him a little bit. His primary role is in pass pro. He's very good at it. That will keep him on the field. He'll get some looks in play action, but other than that, don't expect much out of Singletary. Darnell Mooney, you can't start him even without Drake London. Kirk Cousins is a nothing burger, and Michael Penix is almost worse. No parts of this offense outside of Drake London. Marvin Mims in Denver. he sees some volume here, he sees some volume there. It hasn't been consistent enough. Still not rosterable in fantasy. Same thing with Calvin Austin in Pittsburgh, Darius Slayton in New York, and Slayton's former teammate Sterling Shepard, who is now in Tampa Bay. These guys they're Josh Reynolds light. That back end third wide receiver that most teams carry. When they need to get them volume, they'll use it. They're great for change of pace, not rosterable in fantasy, guys. Keon Coleman of the Buffalo Bills, unfortunately, this offense is just so spread out, Evan. There's no way to know who's going to be the guy from week to week. This past week, it was Khalil Shakir. Could be Keon Coleman next week. It could not be Keon Coleman the rest of the season. Simply not worth the risk. And then we're going to go to the kicker, Brandon McManus, with the injury, and he's an asshole. You don't need to roster him in Green Bay. There are plenty of other kicker options out there, Evan. You can just stay away from him. No need.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, folks. Well, that's going to do it for us here on the Waiver Wire Show. We're getting in under an hour tonight so you can get back to that game and get those waiver wire claims set. Evan, thank you so much for tuning in with me tonight, folks. Make sure you check out tools.optimusfantasy.com. Use that promo code OptimusFall to get 25% off your first 4 months. And if you are listening to the audio version or watching the replay, head on over to Discord. We will answer your questions there. We've got football talk going 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. For Evan Sather, I am Nate Polvogt, folks. Good luck in week 9, and we'll see you next week.